In the last video, you saw me not look at the cam bearings as I removed the old cam and installed the new cam. In this episode, we finish out the whole process with the heads and put the engine back together.
Next, we gotta do the lifters, and these are LS7 lifters from Cam Motion. I always do an extra step prior to putting them on. I like to soak them in oil prior to putting them on. So I just got a jug, because sometimes they send this to you and it has a thing I could dump oil into, but I can't here because they just gave me cardboard. So we're just gonna dump this in here. We're gonna just dump some oil in it, just to let them soak. Then we can put them in. So this isn't gonna happen right this second. I know, looks weird, but we're gonna soak it for a day. We'll come back and we should be good to go with putting it in the car. I just don't like to throw lifters in that haven't been primed. This is the easiest way to prime it. Some people like to reuse their cam retainer plate, but this gasket can wear out over time, and especially if it's the original one, you might want to replace it. So I just cleaned up the area all around it. And you know, sometimes it's good to get new hardware. You don't want to accidentally snap these off, especially because they're Torx. And we're going to use a T40 to tighten it down. And then we just got to torque it down to 18 foot-pounds. Okay, so now that we have our cam retainer plate back on, we have to put the timing chain back on as well. And there's a foolproof system that they use on these cars to make sure you don't screw it up. There's only one way that the cam sprocket can go on the camshaft. That's it. This thing makes it so there's only one way to do it. And then you got to make sure that this line here, or this dot here, is straight up. And then on the actual camshaft itself, it has a line up there too. So you just have to make sure that those sprockets are next to each other when you put the cam sprocket back on. So you put it on. I'm just going to do this to turn it, but we're going to put it on and we're going to turn the cam so it's perfectly facing down, just like that. So when we put the chain on, that's how we're going to line it up. Okay. Before I torque it down, we'll just make sure everything is straight. Make sure these are at 26 foot-pounds. Okay. So then what we're going to do, just to make sure, we rotate it around and make sure both dots line up again together. So, see this here? One. Go back around again. And they find it, and both dots lining up, that's how you know you're at top dead center. Boom. If you're looking for a great way to support our channel, check out lowboostfilms.com. Not only does this support the channel, but you'll look great while you do it as well. We have a great selection of different types of apparel and merchandise that you guys can buy. I also have a selection of car parts and tools that we've reviewed on the channel that we know work well for sale on there as well at a good price, so make sure you check it out. Alright, so now that we've had our lifters soaking in this for about a day or so, we're going to put them on the lifter trays and then put them in. These lifters have dots on them. I like to make sure all these dots are pointing forward. I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason. I don't know if there's anybody else that says you don't have to do it, but for me, I've always done it that way. Next up, I got oil pump. I'm gonna put that on. The key with the oil pumps are, though, it's always good to prime them before you put them in. So we're just gonna dump some oil into here, run it around through the gears here so we can make sure it's nice and primed before we go ahead and slap this on. Now, it also comes with O-rings, and that depends on the pickup tube that you're gonna use. We'll do that in a separate video because we're not gonna put the oil pan on yet. Thankfully, I got a bunch of oil here. This is oil I had, brand new oil that I had in, we were using for the lifters. We'll just reuse it for this. oil flipping. Yeah, we're gonna get oil everywhere, but that's okay. There. Be sure to tighten these down to 18 foot-pounds. All this stuff is 10 millimeter sockets as well. I'm not tightening down the timing cover all the way. I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna keep that loose until I put the oil pan on and make sure all of those seams line up perfectly before I do that. Now we're gonna put the heads on next, but before we do that, we wanna make sure that the head bolt holes are free and clear. So what I did was I took an old head bolt, put it in all the way, not driving it in, just to clear out the grooves. But I also did something to this specific bolt itself to help kind of clean the dirt out. I cut a groove in the actual old head bolt to kind of get all the dirt and grime out, which will prevent us from cracking the block when we actually tighten everything down. So I'm gonna run it through all these and then we'll put the heads on. See that groove? Just cut a little groove in. Look at all that dirt and grime and crap. Just, that'll help us so we don't hydrolock it. We're also gonna blow air into each one of these. So we're gonna make sure that we do that. But look at all that, look at that. That could potentially cause some problems when you're torquing these things down. So we'll clean it up. All right, so now we've had this thing as cleaned as possible. I also, you didn't see it, but off camera, I blew out every hole, turned the motor sideways, blew out every hole with compressed air to make sure there's no water in it because we don't want to hydrolock it. Now we're gonna put our LS9 head gaskets on and our heads, now that we have all the dowel pins, and we'll start torquing them down. I did get ARP head bolts. You could get studs, but we're not going for crazy, crazy power. ARP head bolts will work fine for this application. It tells you on the front, and you put them on just like this before we put the actual heads on. These head gaskets are going to be a little thicker than your normal head gasket. It's MLS, which stands for multi-layered steel. That's going to actually lower our compression a hair, but give us more tolerability under a boosted application. That's why they use them on the LS9. Did my best job at cleaning the bottom of these as I could. Okay, so according to the instructions that we got in the kit, bolts 1 through 10, which are 11 millimeter bolts, all the ones that go all through here and here and here, right? Those get torqued in sequence by order, which shows on the chart, 25, 50, and then 80 foot-pounds. And then you tighten bolts 11 to 15, which are these here, to 25 foot-pounds. So we're gonna go ahead and do the bigger ones first. I'll put them all in. Then we're gonna go by this exact sequence here, tightening them down 25, 50, 80 foot-pounds on both sides, and then we'll put the other ones in to 25 foot-pounds, and then we'll be done. There it is. All right, so next up, we're gonna do the trunnion kit on all the rockers to make sure we can handle all that RPM, as well as we're gonna do a rebuild kit on the LSA supercharger and get ready to slap that thing on so we can actually put this in our Type 65 Shelby Daytona Coupe. Plus, we're gonna do a whole bunch of other videos because we got a lot of work still to do on this thing. So guys, stick around for all those videos. Also, in the meantime, if you can't wait until next week for my next video, check out these videos that I already have ready to go.